Well, hello and welcome to Outlook 2016, which is the communication component of the Office 2016 suite. When we talk about Outlook, we're going to be talking about a tool that's designed primarily for communicating with people in the outside world via email. So in order for us to really get a good understanding of Outlook, I need to make sure that we have a clear understanding of what Outlook, or what email actually is. When we're talking about electronic communication, it's typically what we think of when we say, I'm going to shoot you an email or a message and go out to the world and then come back. Now, the way that actually works is that you have what is called an email client, and that's what Outlook actually is. It's a local application or piece of software that actually talks to what's called an email server. When you get an email account, you sign up with an email service. Typically, it's like Gmail or Yahoo, or it could be your cable provider, it could be your phone provider, and you get an email address. That email address is associated with a domain. So you're not actually sending the email, you're communicating with an email server that then actually sends that particular email. That email server sends it out on its way, goes to another email server for the person you're trying to reach. They then have an email client that allows them to access that email and be able to read whatever it is you sent it. They then have the ability to respond, communicate to their email server, talks to your email server, and then talks to you. Now, why did I tell you all that? I told you all that because I need you to understand what the limitations of Outlook are. The things that we're going to be covering is how do you interact locally, create, read, delete, modify email messages. This is not the technical side of how it gets to the other side. All you need to know is that you've configured your Outlook to communicate with one or more of these email servers. Because as we'll see in the intermediate course, I can have multiple email accounts, email addresses, that I can read them in one email client. So this email client I have, which is Outlook, can go out to this email server, can go to this email server, can go to this email server. Now, specifically with Microsoft Outlook, we actually have 4 components that we're going to be discussing as we go through this course. This particular course is the basics. It's the introduction to it. So we'll be going over the interface. We'll be talking about the basics of creating an email. But the other components that we're going to be discussing is the calendar. Outlook has a great built-in calendar functionality that allows me to manage my life in an effective way. If you're using Outlook from a corporate perspective, you can actually interact with other calendars throughout your environment to check people's schedule, to schedule time, send meeting invites, and other invitations like that. So there's 2. The third one is where the core of all of this communication takes place, which is the contacts. You have a list of people that you communicate with. Think of it as your black book, your address book that you have available. This address book is going to house everybody that you communicate with, whether it's an email that you receive, a person that you enter manually, somebody that you've emailed out. All of that information is available inside my contact directory. And we'll see that there's lots of different ways I can use my contact directory, including using it from a corporate perspective or a personal sales business perspective to track all of your contacts with people and see what you've done with them in the past. And the fourth thing that we're going to be talking about is task list. It's a to-do list that you've got electronically built into the same application that you email from, the same application that has your contacts, and the same application that has your tasks. Of course, all of that information is sorted in together. So as we go through this course, these are the components that we're going to be discussing. And I'm going to try and break this up into, here's the email component, here's the calendar component, here is the contact component, here is the task component. There are crosses between those components though. So as we go through this course, you'll begin to see I can create a calendar event while I'm reading an email, or I can send an email to a contact while I'm looking at their contact record. So while I'll be talking about them separately, they really are the same application and they are part of the same application database. So let's get started. Let's go ahead and dive into Microsoft Outlook. Now, I haven't opened it yet for a reason. When Outlook is installed on your machine, the very first time that you open it, it's going to ask you a question. Because I cannot have Outlook without an email account. It just doesn't make any sense. I can't do anything with it. I can't associate it with anything. And nowadays, just about everybody has at least one email account. If you don't, you can go get one for free on Gmail. Go to mail.google.com, follow the instructions, you can get an account. So I've created an account specific for this course. So we're going to actually walk through the process of what it takes for the first time to be able to log into that account. You'll notice that the window that pops up says, hey, it's going to manage your life. What do you want to do? Let's get started. First thing it asks me is, are you using an Exchange server? In this case, if you are using a corporate environment, an Exchange server is a very special type of mail server. Exchange is Microsoft's mail server code, if you want to think of it that way, that does a lot more than just manage emails. We are not going to be using a Microsoft Exchange server for purposes of this course. If you're involved with management of an Exchange server or you are using an Exchange server at work, a lot of the concepts will still apply based on what you see, but from a configuration standpoint, it's just well beyond the scope of what we're going to be talking about here. So I am going to set up, it says Outlook to connect to email accounts such as Microsoft Exchange or whatever. Do I want to connect it to an email account? Yes, it's not an Exchange account, but I do want to set it up to an email account. So I say next, and it asks me for my name. My name is actually O216 Teacher. Yes, Office 2016 minus the 0, that is my name. My email address, and this is the email address that I've already configured. So this is the information that you need to know. You need to know your email address and the password that you use to connect to that email account, which means you have to have had this set up ahead of time or have it given to you. In this case, my address is O216teacher at, the at symbol means that's the mail service that I use or the mail server that my account is listed on. So anytime you hear somebody say, give me your email address or my email address is, it is always going to be something at something dot something. For example, in this case, it's O216teacher at Gmail, which is googlemail.com. That is my email address. So if you want to send me an email after you're taking this course, yes, that is my email address that I've configured for this course. I will read it and respond to you as best I can. Obviously, it's not my normal email that I use. But anyway, it's real. It's not anything fake. Then I come down here and I put my password. It's in here that I want to type the password that I entered when I created that account. Do I want to manually set up or additional server types? Now, what does that mean? If you remember, I talked about the fact that this client is really only talking to a mail server. Now, there is a record or a piece of code that most mail servers will create that says, if you ask me for the stuff you need to connect to me, as long as you're a valid user, I will electronically return that to you so that you can configure your setup automatically. Meaning, I need to know the server's address, I need to know their port number, I need to know a lot of garbage. And we'll cover what all that garbage is, technical term there, garbage. We'll cover all of that technical mumbo jumbo in the intermediate course. I'm going to go back and talk about if I don't know it or if it doesn't work correctly, these are the elements that you need to know to be able to configure this. The reality is, in this case, if I needed to do that and if I press the button, it would change the way things work. What I really have is I have an email account already. I'm going to enter that information. All I have to do is hit next. Now what happens here is it's going to go out and it's going to actually connect to the Gmail or Google server. It's going to send my username and password, and it's going to come back and it's going to validate that this is the right information. So let me make sure I've typed my password correct. And do I want to save this in my password list? Yes, I do. And for some reason, it is not liking the password that I put in. So obviously something's wrong here. This is the password that I use to connect to my Gmail account, and it's not working here. So here's a little bit of troubleshooting for you. Most email systems, and Gmail being one of those examples, does have the ability to log in via a web browser. You can go to a web address, you can log in, and you can interact with it that way. That means that the web browser becomes your email client. That web browser talks to the server, blah, blah, blah. So what I need to do right now is I need to validate that the password I'm entering here is the password that works. Because I know there's something that's happened with Gmail recently, specifically for Gmail, that has caused some security concerns. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my account. And you can notice here that my account, which I have for Google, is right here. It's O216 Teacher. And I logged in using it. So I'm going to go ahead and log out, sign out. I'm going to add an account, meaning I'm going to log in. That's not me. This is one of the benefits or downsides of using a public computer is your Gmail account could potentially be accessed by someone else. So always be careful with that. Just a little security tidbit. But O216 Teacher. And we'll go ahead and say next. I'll put in my password, I know. And you know what? There it is. Now you can also see here that there is a notification from Google that says, hey, someone just tried to sign into your account. This date, we strongly recommend you secure app like Gmail to access your site. All apps might Google, blah, blah, blah. What it's basically saying is it's saying that Outlook is not a secure enough application. So there is a setting within Gmail that I need to switch that allows me to allow less secure apps. I happen to know about this because it's something I've dealt with in a different scenario that I was at, a different environment. So I'm going to go to my account and I'm going to go over here to login and security. When I go to login and security, I've got several options that are available. Device and security alerts, reset security devices, connected apps and sites. And this one down here, which says allow less secure applications, is off. What's happening here is that Google is going, we're smarter than you are, Microsoft. We know how to be more secure than you do, and you don't meet our standards. Basically is what's going on. And it's a battle that goes on from day to day. We're more secure. No, we are. Yes, we are. No, we're not. All I have to do is to turn this off and then go ahead and accept this or save it. Let me see if there is a save down here at the bottom, which there is not. Check my privacy settings. Everything seems to be okay. Well, let me go ahead and try this again and see whether I get the same issue. One more time. And there we go. It tells me that my IMAP email account is successfully configured. What just happened there, all of that stuff that we just went through, is that the first thing it did is it established a connection. It took, as it set up, it went, I can get to the network, I'm good to go. Then it reached out and tried to find the settings for gmail.com. So what it did is it emailed or it went out, connected to the Gmail server, the Google server, and it said, hey, I'm setting up an account. Here's who I am. How do I communicate with you? And it sent back basically a book of instructions back to Outlook, and Outlook said, great, thumbing through the instructions. Okay, here's my user account and password. And then Google at that point went, well, that's too bad because you're not secure enough. So as soon as I configured it to allow Outlook to connect, then it went ahead and sent a test message, got a reply, followed the instruction book, and it said, you know what? I'm completely connected. Now you'll notice that it says IMAP, I-M-A-P. That is actually a protocol or a language that is used for email messaging. It's interstate mapping access protocol or something. It doesn't really matter. There is another one called POP, P-O-P. When we start talking about configuring things manually in the intermediate class, I'm going to describe the difference between IMAP and POP. Just know that by default, IMAP is actually the better way to go. It's the better communication technique. So all I have to do is to hit finish. Outlook continues to load up. You'll notice that it says loading profile. What Outlook will do is it will remember who you are and store all the information about you in a file called a profile. Which means if you have multiple logins to your computer at home, let's say that you have one, your spouse has one, your kids have one, then your profile is associated with who you are on that computer. Which means that theoretically, if your spouse logs on, they're not going to see your account. They're going to log in under their own account, under their own profile. There is a way to transfer that information. We're really not going to go into it. It's very technical. Just know that everything about you, which is your login credentials, the information about your account, all the settings that you have is all stored in your profile, which means it loads that every time it loads Outlook. Now, the first thing it does here is it tells me what's new. It can tell me that I have a black theme. Attachments keep getting bigger, and our calendar also speaks Persian. Okay, because I speak Persian language. All I have to do is close that and I get to the actual interface that I have for Outlook. Now, to help us understand all the different elements that are here, I want to make sure that we go through all of the different pieces. To do that, I'm going to go over from top to bottom, left to right, and we're probably going to have to do it a couple times. Because remember, I said there's 4 components. We have our mail component, which by default, which is where we're at. We have our calendar, which is going to have a little bit different interface. We have our contacts that are a little bit different. And then we're also going to have our tasks, which again is a little bit different associated with that as well. So I always start at the top and I work my way down. So in the upper left-hand corner, I have my quick launch toolbar. This is basically a set of tools that are provided that I can easily access and do things quickly. Right now, the only option that I have is I have send and receive all folders. When we're talking about email, and I told you we have a client and we have a server, they're not talking constantly, which means there may be a delay between the time an email gets to the mail server and Outlook actually says, hey, give me new mail. You can configure that setting. You can say do it every 5 minutes. You can say do it 30 minutes, do it once an hour, but it only does it when it's open. This button, this send receive, says, okay, go get my mail. It is as if you walk to the mailbox, open it up and say, is anything there? Is anything there? It's just doing it electronically. We're going to see later that I can change and add some additional functionality there, but for right now, that is our quick launch toolbar. Over here, this is our title of the window. This gives us an idea of where we are, what we're doing, and who we are. You can see that I'm in my inbox. We're going to talk about folders a little bit later, but the main folder that we're concerned with is my inbox. Think of that as your mailbox, and it is going to house all of the things you have received, including those things that you've read, opened, and all those things that have not been opened as well, which we call unread. It tells me the account, who I am, and it tells me that I'm dealing with Outlook. Pretty straightforward stuff. Had this been a document, and we'll see later on that there is actually a document within email, it would give me the document name that I have there. And over here, I have the ability to hide this ribbon, which is my collection of tools that I have available to me. Microsoft does a great job of providing functionality and showing it to me, and then hiding it if I don't need it. So I can set this to auto hide. Now, all of my tools are located on the ribbon. Now for us during this course, we're going to leave it open. We're going to always have it there because I want to be able to reference those tools and be able to quickly get to them. You may or may not feel comfortable with that. You may get used to things like right-clicking or keyboard shortcuts. But for us, we're going to go ahead and do it. If I wanted to change any of those settings, this is the way I would do it. Auto hide just means that it disappears until I run my mouse over it. Show tabs means that the tabs are there and I click on one and it'll expand that ribbon. Specifically, like I said, the one we're going to use is to show the tabs and the commands at all times. Next to that, I have my window controls. My window controls become very, very important when we're talking about Outlook because when I create messages, I can create a whole new window. That whole new window is still Outlook, but it's another instance of Outlook that is available. So when we talk about these Windows controls, I need to make sure we know what each one of them does. The first one, which is my staple, which is a minimize button. And what it will do is it takes whatever window we're on, which is this one, and if I hit it, it makes it as small as it can get, which means it puts it on the toolbar. So in this case, if I do that, it disappears the window, but if I go down here, you'll notice that I have this message or this icon for Outlook that indicates that I have a window that is open. If I want to bring it back, I simply click on it and it'll bring that window open. If I had multiple windows open for Outlook, it would go ahead and show me all of those and I can choose which window I want to go ahead and open of Outlook. The next one is a restore or maximize. That's kind of a toggle button. Right now we're in maximize mode, which means that I am taking up the entire screen. Everything that I have is on the screen. If I press this button, it makes it to a smaller size. What that indicates is I've gone to a smaller window layout. And then the icon that I have there allows me to, again, maximize. Like I said, it toggles back and forth between restore and maximize. Why is that important? It's important because maybe I want to have this window open and I want to have a message window open and I want to be able to read the contents of both. The only way to do that is to have both windows in a restore mode and not have them in maximize because then they would be covering one another. I went ahead and maximized it because I actually want to work in a maximize mode right now. The other button that I have right here is the close button, and it's closing this window. Remember I said that Outlook could have multiple windows open. The way this works is if I have Outlook open and it's the only window that I have, when I close that window, it closes Outlook. But if I have other Outlook windows open and I close this one, Outlook is still running, it just has this instance that is available. So you may think you're closing Outlook, but you may have left an email open or you may have left a calendar open and you may be looking at something. Just be aware that that's the way it actually works. Now the next level down we have is our tabs. Now there's going to be a lot of contextual tabs. What do I mean by a contextual tab? I mean that tabs only appear when I'm in certain places. The controls that I have will change when I'm in different places. Whether I'm creating an email, whether I'm creating an appointment, whether I'm reading an email, whether I'm creating a contact or completing a task. What I want to do is cover these that I'm seeing here. Remember, I'm looking at my email interface. If I go to my file here, this file is where I'm going to be able to configure Outlook as a whole. This is called the backstage or background area. And most of the controls here are designed around Outlook. It's my configuration settings, it's my account settings, it's saving and printing and some of those other functions that are available for Outlook as a whole, not specific to an email message or to an appointment that I've got on my calendar. If I want to get back to that location, I can go ahead and click on my back arrow. If you think about your internet browser, when you go someplace and you want to go back, you hit the back arrow. Same thing applies to the Backstage tab. The next tab that we have over is called the Home tab. Now the Home tab will change depending upon where you are. When I mean change, I'm talking about the contents of that particular bar and what information is available. When I'm in my email messaging area, you'll notice that I can create a new email or I can create a new item. A new item is just that I can create an appointment, I can create a task, I can create a contact. All those different components I can do from here. Remember I said that they're separate applications within Outlook, but they do talk to one another and I can link back and forth. The next area here is Team Viewer. And what that allows me to do is to create appointments and then see people's schedule depending upon what access I have. If you're using Exchange or if you're using some sort of calendar sharing application, you'll be able to schedule and then see if somebody is available at the time that you're proposing to schedule that particular event. The next one over is talking about deleting, and it's deleting messages or deleting items, not necessarily deleting characters when you're creating a message. It's deleting junk, it's taking care of cleaning up your mailbox, talking about ignoring particular messages. The next one over is my respond. When we talk about email, we're doing a communication. So I may send a message to someone. They may send a message to me. When I get that message, I may want to respond to that message. I may want to say, hey, let me tell you regarding this, this is what I want to say. I may want to take this message and I want to forward it on. So this area is all about responding to that information, including responding to meeting invitations and responding to task requests as well. The next one over is what's called Quick Steps. Quick Step is not a dance, I promise. It is really a way to quickly get things done. We're going to find out in the intermediate course that I can actually create my own quick steps because Outlook does have a lot of ways to make things easier for me. And if you've ever had email before, you know that your email inbox will grow a lot over time. Every time you put your email address somewhere on the internet, it really means you're going to get some sort of email from them. That's typically what that means. So as you start to get email messages, you're going to get a lot of them. I'm going to let you know that I actually created this account yesterday. And I've already gotten all this information. Some of it is from accounts that I've created to create this sort of pseudo conversation, but I'm also getting messages from Outlook. I'm getting messages from Google. I'm getting messages from Adweek, Harbor Freight Tools. I'm getting all kinds of messages in here. And I've only been on the email address for 2 days. The more time you use, the more times you use this email address, the more information you're going to get. So as we talk about managing your inbox, that's going to become very, very important. These quick steps are ways that I can identify, move, and address those messages quickly without having to go through all the steps that are necessary.